Catholics take it personally. We call her Holy Father for a reason, like a father's death. Do you think Cardinal Tagle should be the next pope? Comment 1 for yes, 0 for no. Let's examine Pope Francis's words and why they're relevant now. Pope Francis, spiritual leader of almost 1 billion Catholics, died on March 21, died April 2025. His early Easter Monday demise was confirmed by Vatican officials. Pope Francis, 88, has been struggling with pneumonia and breathing issues. Despite these challenges, his death shocked and saddened the world and ended a papacy that had shaped the Catholic Church. Pope Francis was noted for his frugal lifestyle, progressive social ideas, and tireless attempts to make the Church more inclusive and accessible during his 12-year pontificate. World leaders, religious leaders, and ordinary residents mourned his passing and discussed his legacy. His papacy was controversial, but many believe his efforts to stimulate church conversation, challenge clerical privilege, and defend the poor and vulnerable had lasting effects. From calling for quick climate change action to opposing migration and economic inequality, Francis has promoted the Church as a voice for the voiceless. The Vatican is weeping and reflecting. Which manners are required? The College of Cardinals, 115 voting cardinals under 80, will elect a pope in a conclave. Secret and sacred procedures have been followed by the Catholic Church for centuries. As they prepare to elect a new head, speculation abounds about who will lead the Church during global and internal upheaval. A new boss, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, a famous Filipino cleric close to Pope Francis, is being considered. Their friendship, founded on compassion, humility, and social justice, has long drawn attention. As is traditional in the Church, the late Pope never named a successor, although Cardinal Tagle was given significant appointments and assignments during his reign. Cardinal Tagle represents Pope Francis' values. Cardinal Tagle's style, known for his simplicity, soulful and sincere speeches, and strong commitment to the poor, is in line with Francis's vision for the Church. His work in Manila before he was invited to the Vatican showed that his pastoral skills and commitment to inclusion are crucial, especially among marginalized populations. Many interpreted Francis's 2019 selection of Tagle as head of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples as more than administrative. The Red Office, named for its immense power, gave Tagle control over missionary work worldwide, especially in Asia, Africa, and Latin America, where Catholicism was vital. As Catholic populations rose worldwide but dropped in Europe and North America, the Church's priorities changed. Pope Francis and Cardinal Tagle enjoyed a fundamental philosophical understanding transcending politics and administration. Both men have supported a Church that listens, puts the poor first, and prioritizes discourse over division. Tagle's compassion and leadership after Typhoon Haiyan in 2013 garnered him considerable accolades in the Philippines and abroad, demonstrating this common goal. Pope Francis' resignation has heightened scrutiny of Cardinal Tagle. Could he continue the late Pope's vision? If so, how would he bear the huge responsibility of heading a diverse, deeply divided global church? Tagle isn't the only choice. Theological beliefs, geopolitical considerations, administrative expertise, and the Cardinal's judgment all impact the Pope's selection. Tagle's name keeps coming up in conversations because he represents a continuation of Francis's road for a church that is closer to the people, more concerned with modern society's concerns, and less mired in tight procedures. Not everyone accepted Francis' papacy. He faced Vatican and Orthodox opposition to his shift. Resistance to decentralization, financial openness, and interreligious dialogue was common. Some conservative groups perceived these reforms as a deviation from theology and believed the Church was abandoning its foundations for popularity or relevance. In this context, electing the next pope is a spiritual and political choice between reform and conservatism. In Rome, people are contemplating and waiting. A pope's death usually causes change and questions about the Church's future. The world will see the College of Cardinals vote in camera in the Sistine Chapel over the next 3 days, guided by prayer and an evaluation of the Church's needs. The next pope will inherit a church molded by Francis, who prioritized mercy, presence, and humility over control. Many Catholics, especially in the global South, believe this tendency will continue and grow as the Church prepares for the next chapter. Cardinal Tagle bridges Francis' aspirations and may illuminate the future, a certainty in these uncertain days as the Catholic world mourns and prepares. Pope Francis' legacy will last. Who will succeed them, and how will they continue the vision of a church that dreams bigger, loves deeper, and serves more humbly than ever? Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle is one of the Catholic Church's most prominent individuals, especially in the global South. His tour symbolizes his personal devotion to religion and service, and Pope Francis's bigger church changes throughout his pontificate. After Pope Francis's death, Tagle's name is being discussed more than ever, and many question if he would continue and deepen his mentor and close allies shift. Cardinal Tagle's youth. Cardinal Tagle was born in Manila, Philippines in 1957 to an impoverished family with strong community links. His pastoral activity was shaped by his early spirituality and social awareness. He was ordained in 1982 and immediately showed academic depth, emotional sensitivity, and a profound concern for the impoverished and oppressed. Tagle's values and leadership style matched Pope Francis's church vision, making him a natural ally. Tagle became Manila's archbishop in 2011. This helped him build his reputation and offered him a platform to lead with pastoral care, humility, and compassion. Audiences responded to his real and amusing speeches. He was noted for connecting with his audience and simplifying complex theological themes. His informality set him apart from Catholic leaders, making him popular in his country and among those who followed him abroad. Tagle led Manila with integration and service. He valued listening to people, especially the poor, and taking their tales seriously. His leadership style and connection with Pope Francis centered on such behavior. Under his leadership, the Archdiocese of Manila showed how the Church may reach people through theological education, community service, charity, and advocacy. Pope Francis saw Tagle's skills early in his pontificate and swiftly included him in Vatican activities. The two men clearly admired each other. Both envisioned an open, honest, and forgiving church that could adapt to current times while maintaining its spirituality. Francis recognized Tagle as a brilliant churchman and a leader of the global church as he took on increasing responsibilities. Tagle became president of Caritas Internationalis, a global Catholic humanitarian network in 160 countries. He oversaw projects to fight hunger, poverty, and climate change and promote religious harmony. His Caritas leadership promoted action over words. He stressed that the Church's credibility in the modern world is based on its readiness to aid the needy, not its power or size. This aligned with Pope Francis's views and solidified Tagle's status as a reformer and global activist. After Pope Francis nominated Tagle prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples in December 2019, his elevation was perhaps most significant. The Vatican's Propaganda Fide department oversees global missionary work. The Red Pope is one of the most powerful offices in the Roman Curia and has a major impact in the Church's developing countries, particularly in Western Africa and Latin America. This appointment sent a message, not merely a promotion. Pope Francis trusted Tagle to oversee the Church's global evangelization efforts and expand its reach in a more inclusive and culturally sensitive manner by choosing him. Tagle offered an alternative to Western evangelism. He advised local congregations to accept their culture while upholding the gospel. This approach promoted discussion and shared spirituality rather than imposing religious authority. As prefect, Tagle led like his pastoral background. He avoided conflict and attempted to resolve issues. In a Vatican plagued by internal strife and power struggles, his temperament and ability to talk across cultural and ideological divides were vital. Nonetheless, he spoke out on crucial matters. Tagle upholds the Church's social mission by defending migrants and refugees and advocating environmental protection. Tagle has expertly balanced tradition and innovation throughout his career. His degree from the Catholic University of America and membership in the International Theological Commission make him well-versed in church teachings and theology. However, he acknowledges that the Church must adapt to current issues. His idea for an impoverished church is more than a word. It shows the genuine theological belief that living the gospel entails service, humility, and solidarity with the poor. One of Tagle's greatest strengths is making theology personal. In his lectures and interviews, he discusses growing up in a modest area, his parents and teachers who shaped his values, and regular people whose faith inspires him. These friendly, real anecdotes try to remove the Catholic hierarchy's stiff image. They show a guy who understood that spiritual leadership requires empathy and personal witness. Post-Pope Francis Cardinal Tagle is better known in the Church than ever. Discussions concerning the future Pope inevitably mention him. Instead of actively pursuing this office, which is illegal and frowned upon in the Church, his vision is identical to Francis's. Tagle is a church that listens, reaches out, and dreams of a better future, like Francis. However, Tagle's progress faced challenges. Vatican factions still resist the change. Some find its inclusive dialogue-oriented approach overly soft, while others find its dogma excessively strict. Some seek a return to European or historic church leadership, which has geopolitical ramifications. His global appeal, pastoral talents, and theological basis make him a captivating character in the Church's fate discussion. Whether Cardinal Tagle becomes Pope or not, his influence is great. He represents a new generation of Catholic leaders who care about pastoral care and are globally aware. Tagle's voice will influence Catholicism's response to the complex, quickly changing world as it prepares for a new chapter. The idea of a church for the underprivileged is not new, but Pope Francis has elevated it to the forefront of Catholic thought and action. Francis made it clear from his early days as Pope that his church vision was open. He often criticized a self-centered church and advocated for a model that helps people, especially the poor. Cardinal Tagle was extremely moved by this, as his pastoral work in the Philippines had long followed this idea. In Manila, Tagle diligently promoted the church's presence among the top and middle classes and genuine ministry to the needy. Visiting slums, listening to resident stories, and celebrating Mass in disaster zones were his regular activities. His attitude was more solidarity than generosity from afar. He encouraged the church to walk alongside people, feel their concerns, and understand their needs as fellow travelers. Following Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, one of the strongest tropical cyclones ever, this thought became clear. The cyclone displaced millions and killed thousands in the Philippines. Cardinal Tagle acted immediately and compassionately. He organized aid and visited mourning families, longing for the dead and offering emotional and spiritual support. His presence was noticed. Many Filipinos saw him as the model of a caring, crisis-responding church. Tagle's humility, compassion, and preference for listening over lecturing have helped him succeed in the church's outreach to the people. He led Caritas Internationales's global hunger, migration, and climate change projects as president. These efforts were religious and practical. He often lectured about the theology of the face, which maintains that we feel God when we gaze at another's face, especially when they are suffering. This approach inspired his view of mission and evangelization as a reciprocal relationship based on love, respect, and shared humanity, rather than a one-way path where the church teaches and others receive. Cardinal Tagle also prioritizes interreligious communication in his services. Living in a Muslim country and working with Caritas overseas exposed him to different religions. He often promotes religious harmony, especially in combating poverty, violence, and environmental destruction. He thinks this effort is crucial to the church's mission. He believes communities must build bridges to realize the gospel message of peace and reconciliation. The way Francis and Tagel are redefining authority is one of the most intriguing aspects of the church's perimeter movement, which could continue. Church power has traditionally been linked to hierarchy, titles, and central authority. Francis and Tagle argue that ministering gives spiritual power. They define leadership as washing feet, helping the sick, and fighting for justice. Such deeds go beyond symbolism. It affects church organization and decision-making. However, this margin focus is not universally accepted. Conservative churchgoers worry that such an emphasis could erode doctrinal clarity or link the church with political aims. They worry that focusing on climate change, migration, and poverty may weaken traditional teachings. Some say Francis's church is too political or has abandoned its spiritual purpose for modern relevance. Cardinal Tagle handled this criticism with his typical sensitivity and understanding. He believes that sustaining the church's core doctrines while meeting global demands is compatible. He even thinks they complement each other. He often invokes the gospel and reminds us that Jesus spent most of his time with the poor, sick, and outcasts. To be true to God, the church must follow suit. Tagle also emphasizes listening. He often says listening is love, a way to give individuals space and value their lives. At a time when many institutions look aloof or unresponsive, Tagle's emphasis on listening to the church, young people, and outsiders feels relevant. Tagle's leadership style reflects the Catholic Church's shift towards synodality, walking, hearing, and making decisions together. This fluid procedure suits Tagle's leadership style. Synodality and decentralization are major themes in Tagle's work. He usually emphasizes the need for local churches to have more control over their operations and community service. He thinks a one-size-fits-all paradigm doesn't work in the Catholic Church, which spans countries, cultures, and socioeconomic realities. He believes bishops should have greater power, and the laity, especially women and youth, should be more involved. This strategy reflects the rising understanding that the Catholic Church's future may rest in the global South, not Europe or North America. Philippine, Brazilian, Nigerian, and Indian Catholic communities are thriving and vibrant. Tagle, a Filipino who worked abroad, represents this demographic and spiritual transition. His perspective illuminates Catholic communities' pleasures and struggles in various places. As the Church faces global concerns like technological transformation, economic injustice, climate disasters, and interfaith strife, a church for the peripherals provides hope. She encourages the Church to courageously serve, listen, and love in the world. Cardinal Tagle can impact the future with his compassion, intellect, and faith. Whether he becomes Pope or not, his acts and words are influencing history. In all his church visits, refugee camp sponsorships, and interfaith events, he represents a church that loves people as individuals, not as souls to be rescued. Creating a church for underrepresented populations is not an abstract ideal, already shaping up. With Pope Francis's death, church divisions are apparent. Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, a reformer, contrasts with the Vatican's conservatives. The current situation reflects a leadership vacuum and a fundamental debate concerning the Catholic Church's 21st century identity. The century should represent. Pope Francis has spent most of his pontificate championing church transparency and inclusivity. He opposed clericalism and promoted a humble, service-oriented priesthood. He sought to decentralize church leadership by empowering local bishops and fostering lay participation. These measures garnered support from younger Catholics and people in the global South, but the institution resisted. Others thought Francis was moving too fast or in the wrong way. The drama involved Cardinal Tagle, a close Pope advisor. His pastoral, sympathetic, and reform-oriented leadership style suited Francis's agenda, making him vulnerable to criticism from those who worried the Church was drifting too far from its traditions. Tagle rarely confronts his opponents, unlike more aggressive politicians. He has always promoted communication over division, but his calmness has become a symbol of the Church's meaningless strife. The Vatican structure is diverse. Each congregation, council, commission, and department has its own goals and effects. Members of this organization have varied theological and political views. Some want a more progressive church that addresses current social issues, while others want a more rigid theology and tradition. Francis exacerbated these difficulties by reforming the Vatican's finances and encouraging accountability. Disputable issues. Financial transparency is a contentious development. Vatican scandals have involved incompetence, corruption, and a lack of control for years. Pope Francis has implemented new guidelines and appointed reform-minded supervisors to clean up the Vatican's finances. Cardinal Tagle worked with Caritas and other Vatican ministries to promote clear ethical standards and better reporting on the Church's charitable and operational activities. These changes were not widely embraced. Some Vatican bureaucrats perceived the changes as a threat to their dominance. Openness was occasionally misinterpreted as wrongdoing, and emotions ran high